Hey everyone, welcome back to the Nello Reads channel. Our first malicious compliance story of the day comes from Mosh Oz. Buy what I can afford? Okay. Last month, I was shopping around for a washing machine. For context, I'm in Nairobi, Kenya. Yes, it's a place. Yes, it's in Africa. Yes, we have electricity and running water. And I'm a bit of a late bloomer, so I look more like a 23-year-old, but I'm 32. Also, I'm a photographer and I dress for comfort, so I more often than not look homeless. Back to the story, I looked up what I wanted online and saw it was available at one of the major chains, but since I was free, I decided to go to the store in person. I went straight to the section with laundry equipment, and one of the salesmen came up to me. I was busy checking out the model I wanted, opening the door, reading the spec sheet and whatnot, and after he greeted me, we started talking about it. He asked if I'm interested in buying it, and I told him I'm considering it and asked for the price. It was just shy of $900. I knew from their website, but since I was in store, I asked if they had in-store discounts or discounts for return customers, and inquired about their payment plans. I had bought a cooker there a few months before, so I knew all these things existed, and while I could afford to buy the washer outright, it would have left me a little cash strapped. Plus, I wanted to spread the payment out over 2 or 3 weeks. Also, I'm frugal, so I always look for discounts. At this time, a well-dressed couple came into the same section, probably looking to buy something as well. And as soon as the salesman saw them, he walked up to them and left me hanging. I called to him like, hey, I wasn't done, and he said, I'm serving a client now. I'll come back to you in a bit. In the meantime, look around for something you can afford. I was furious, but I'm a bit of a coward. So I walked away and went to the customer service station and started making my inquiry all over again. The attendant offered to call a sales agent for me, the same guy. Apparently, he's the go-to guy for washing machines, but I declined. I told her I already knew what I wanted and I just needed someone to help me with the paperwork and payment, and I'll be on my way. She did just that. I paid the full amount out of spite, and as we were finishing up, the salesman came up to her claiming I was his client, which I denied, and the attendant listed herself as the sales agent. It turns out they earn a 10% commission from each sale, and the guy just missed out on a decent bonus. Salesmen earn around $300 plus commissions monthly. As I left, I turned to him and said, turns out I could afford it, with the biggest grin I could muster. Felt good. Best part? The couple he ditched me for left without buying anything. It's an old saying, but it's an old saying for a reason. Don't judge a book by its cover. I'm also glad the customer service lady got the commission, since they probably don't get the chance to get that very often. Our next story comes from Odged Lime. Shower time limit enforced by a song of my choice? Don't mind if I do. This happened last week. I live in a shared house with 2 other flatmates. One of them is currently away on vacation, and the other one unilaterally decided to impose a 5-minute time limit in the shower in order to reduce our gas usage due to soaring high prices. Now, let me be absolutely clear. I am in full support of this, and I have absolutely nothing against the idea. However, in order to make it fun, she decided that we should make a selection of 5-minute songs and use it to time our showers. Again, not a bad idea, but the main problem is that my flatmate works at a brunch place, so she wakes up on every weekday at 5:30 a.m. Of course, music was blasting at effing 5 a.m. for an entire week. On top of that, my bedroom is right next to our shared bathroom. I know my flatmate likes to sleep in late on the weekends, so I decided to do the opposite and put our new agreement into place. I went through my death metal and doom metal playlist, sorted them by time, thanks Spotify, grabbed a few songs that were 5 minutes long, give or take a few seconds, and then woke up on Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. and had the most satisfying showers I ever had. Sunday afternoon, she asked me not to play that noise while taking a shower, and to play normal music. After a short talk, I convinced her to ditch showering with music. Mission effing accomplished. Edit, we ended up getting a digital shower timer. This actually reminds me of when I was in college, because I lived in a dorm room that had its own shower, but I had to share it with the 2 other people that also lived in that room, and trying to time everything was the worst. Sometimes if I woke up and someone else was already in the shower, I was just like, nope, not making it to class today. So I'm glad Opie and their roommate found a better solution than that. Our third story comes from XX Killer Rabbit XX. Read the employee manual so you don't look lazy. I was working in a small hospital as a security guard to help pay my way through college. I am male with long hair, and my boss was a clean-cut, beefy ex-football player and hated that I was far more intelligent, pre-med, and could handle situations far better than he ever expected me to. I helped install a security camera system on every entrance and busy hallways to the hospital. Rather than eating meals by myself in the cafeteria, I would take my meals to the security office and watch the cameras, since I could cover more ground and still eat in peace. I would do paperwork there and watch the cameras as well. He came to me one night hoping to catch me slacking. You look lazy just sitting here, so please read the dang employee manual while you're sitting here. You might actually learn something. So one night I got bored enough to pull down the employee manual and read it between my rounds. Sure enough, they weren't paying us for on-call time. Not only that, they were paying us wrong for when we got called in during our on-call hours. And anytime we got called, we were supposed to be paid from the time we were paged until we arrived back home at no less than 1 hour per call and rounded up to the half hour. I promptly photocopied the page, highlighted the section, placed a copy in each security guard's message box and across the hall on the human resource lady's desk. I even printed off the timesheets and corrected it for the proper pay I was owed, $700 or so from the past 2 years, and left copies in HR and my boss's desk. The next day, during my off day, I received a call from our secretary saying I needed to come in immediately. I walked in to the secretary just smiling at me, my supervisor grinning from ear to ear, and my boss mad as hell. I sat quietly while he berated me about this BS move I had just pulled, to which I replied, "If you recall, you told me to read the employee manual so I don't look lazy, so I did." At this point, he was threatening me and screaming so loudly he could be heard way down the hallway. He was threatening to fire me for insubordination and a list of other infractions. I simply stared at him and said, "I think we should talk to human resources." I stood up and walked across the hall with him screaming at me the whole way as he got up to follow me. I knocked on the open door. "Hey Rhonda, did you get my memo and corrected timesheet?" She simply smiled and said, "I sure did. I'll cut your check as soon as I can." I replied, "And did you catch the boss threatening to fire me for reading the employee manual like he told me to?" "I sure did, hun, and you don't need to worry about your job. You are safe here, and if you need to file a complaint, we heard everything." I turned around to find my boss fuming and red in the face. He turned around and walked out of the hospital to go cool off. Our secretary, my supervisor, and HR all just stood there and broke out laughing. I looked at our secretary and said, "Could you please log my hour for the time I had to come in for this?" Best $700 check I ever cashed. This post really has me wondering, do people actually read their employee manuals? I'd bet that most people don't. Like, if I had one, I honestly don't know if I would. But it's kind of like how most people forget how to press the like button. So maybe press that down below if you're enjoying the video. Or at least press it for that very smooth transition. Our next story of the day is from Underachiever. My university told me to steal $9,000 from them, so I did. This story is from when I was attending university several years ago, pre-pandemic. I was the president of a school club. We had good attendance, but limited interest in leadership positions. I think this was largely due to it being an LGBT organization, and the university lists all university club officers on their website for anyone with internet access to see. But anyway, that meant I was the only acting officer of this club, making me the secretary and treasurer as well. The other officers were actually previous club presidents who had graduated. You just needed 3 student ID numbers to remain an active club. I had planned a large ice cream social that went great. I rented a ballroom on campus, free for student organizations, had ice cream catering, a live band, and almost 100 students in attendance. It was a great way to begin the school year. Anyway, it all cost something like $1,121.17. Not the actual amount, but something like that. There were two methods to pay for this kind of thing: petition in advance for university funds, or pay it yourself and submit a reimbursement after the fact. In the past, the school had taken 6 months to pay a vendor I used, and it was a stressful experience because I wanted them to get paid. I felt terrible having to just keep saying the university is working on it and going to the student organization's finance office twice a week to ask them about it for months. So I figured I'd take the hit and wait for the funds myself. I could sweat it out on student loans and get the band and caterer paid in a timely fashion. There's a bunch of compliance paperwork to fill out, you have to submit itemized receipts, etc., etc. Long story short, it's a process. But I got it all filed and I waited. About 4 months later, I got an email prompting me of an activity in the student organization finance portal to approve a direct deposit to my account. When you get it, you have to confirm the amount. I wish I'd been drinking water because I would have spat it out dramatically. But the amount was for $10,211.70. They had clearly just misplaced the decimal point. I could accept or comment on it, so I wrote that the amount should have been $1,021.17. In an hour, I got a response back along the lines of, yes, the amount is $10,211.70. So I responded, no, it should be $1,021.17. And the response was that she couldn't find an issue. Now look, I'm terribly dyslexic, as in I actually am. I sometimes have to clarify this because it seems to be a quirky thing people without a learning disability say to play off a mistake. So I was genuinely thinking maybe I misread it and caused her the confusion. Maybe, for who knows why, the computer put 3 numbers after the decimal, so I was reading it wrong and thinking it was something else. I had a friend look at it, and she confirmed I was in fact reading it correctly. But hey, maybe the lady in the finance office was also dyslexic, or overworked, or could care less to actually look. Whatever the case, I can explain myself better in person, so I walked down to the office. I was a regular at this point. There was hardly ever a line because nearly everything is done online. So I go up to the desk and say there's been a mistake on a reimbursement request for a club event. I'm told to have a seat and she'll chat with me in a moment. So I waited for about half an hour while she sat on her iPhone at the desk. Then she calls me up. I explain I was over reimbursed and she says, look, as I told you, there's nothing wrong. So I said, but it's off by a decimal place. She kind of just sighed and said she could deny the reimbursement or I could accept it and leave. She seemed to be getting very upset with me, probably because I was constantly asking her the previous year about the payment for that vendor. I said I would accept it and left. When you accept, you can make a comment. So I basically typed in the comment box that I tried to remedy the situation and was told there was no issue repeatedly, over chat and in person, and was then threatened to not be reimbursed at all. I even took screenshots of all the messages in case I had to defend myself. After a few business days, the money was direct deposited into my bank account that the university has on file for tuition/student loans. I let it sit there for a couple years while I was a student, expecting them to find the error and demand the money back. When I was getting close to graduating, and that never happened, I gave the money to a member in my club whose parents stopped paying his tuition because he started testosterone. They pulled funds past the deadline for federal student loans and obviously wouldn't co-sign for private loans. Interestingly enough, for any events over $15K, you had to file invoices in advance and have it pre-approved. Anything under, they recommend you do this, but you can be reimbursed with proper receipts and paperwork. I think that's why it didn't raise any alarms in the computer system. At least that's all I can reason. It kind of haunts me to this day that I might randomly owe $9 grand at some point. And I just don't understand what I was saying wrong that she couldn't understand me, and I worry I should have gone to her supervisor. But I was 19, so I just did as I was told. I think that's the crazy thing about big businesses and schools. Money like that is sort of just like a drop in the bucket. I read an article recently where a guy made like legitimately millions of dollars by just sending Google and I think Apple invoices for just things they never bought. They even paid them for years before they ever noticed that they never actually bought anything from this guy. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and I'll see you in the next video.